Good afternoon. I just jumped right into the meeting, so hopefully that isn't awkward.
Mr. Rojas, the meeting hasn't started yet, so we'll call on you when we're ready.
Okay, I'll turn off my audio and video and
Thank
mute
you.
myself.
Hey, Ken.
Good afternoon, Greg. Hey, Miss Lucy,
Yes.
I received a text message from Councilmember Jones, and he was letting me know that he's going to be just a few minutes late.
Okay, and I received the same thing from Mr. Llamas, so we'll give them time to join us.
Okay, and then I received the email also from Mayor Tom Priya.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Ms. Lucy,
Yes,
I believe we have everybody.
I still don't see Councilmember Jones.
He just showed up here on mine.
Oh, there he is. Let me pin him. Okay, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to Los Banos City Council Special Meeting. The following alternatives are available to members of the public who wish to watch the meeting and or provide comments to the City Council before and during the meeting. We have an audio-video broadcast. The City Council meeting can be accessed in real time from your computer, tablet, or smartphone at the following links. Watch on cable Comcast, channel 96. Watch on YouTube. Join and participate in Zoom meeting at these links. How to comment during a public meeting. Public comments will be taken at the time of each eligible agenda item. If you would like to submit a written comments, please submit written comments by email to cityclerk@losbanos.org or drop them off at City Hall, 520 J Street. If you are a Zoom video conference participant, to comment by Zoom video conference, click the raise your hand button to request to speak when public comment is being taken on an eligible agenda item. You will then be unmuted during your turn and allowed to make public comments. After allotted time, you will then be remuted. If you are a phone participant, to comment by phone, please call on one of the above listed phone numbers. You will be prompted to raise your hand by pressing *9 to request to speak when public comment is being taken on an eligible agenda item. You will then be unmuted during your turn to allow to make public comments. Then press *6 to unmute yourself in order to speak. After allotted time, you will then be remuted. Important things to remember during your public comment period. All attendees shall be muted upon entry to the meeting. Please do not raise your hand if the item currently being heard is not the item you wish to speak on. We will call for public testimony on each item individually. When the item you are interested in is called and public speakers are invited to raise their hands, raise yours then, and we will call them on the order they are raised. You may of course speak on multiple items, but your comments during each item must address the item currently under discussion. Speakers attempting to speak about items other than the item currently under consideration will be muted and asked to wait for the item they're here to speak about to be called. If there is any disturbance to the meeting, the live feed to the YouTube channel 96 will be paused for a short period of time. Once the disruption is corrected, the live feed will resume and the meeting will continue where it left off. Now, we may call to order at 3:15 p.m. and we'll ask Chief Breezy for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. And I now will ask the City Clerk, Ms. Maloney, to call roll call.
Jones,
Present.
Lambert,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Llamas,
Here.
Faria.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Okay, now I'd like to get someone to make a motion for the consideration and approval of the agenda.
Mr. Pro Tem, so moved.
I can't see any hands. Did I get anyone to make a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Councilmember Lambert, Councilmember Lewis, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Do I have a second?
Mayor Pro Tem Llamas, I'll second that.
All right, I have a second by Councilmember Llamas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Agendas have been approved. Move to the next one, public forum. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of public interest that is within jurisdiction of the city council. Includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items. Speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Detailed guidelines on how to participate and make comments are listed on pages 1 and 3 of the agenda. Comments received prior to the meeting will be read into the record at the appropriate time during the city council meeting. Ms. Lucy, do we have anyone on Zoom to make comments?
I see one hand raised by Walt Ballard. Would you like to speak, Walt?
Yes, sorry, it's actually Kathy. I have a quick question. You have an open forum before you do your interviews. If there's questions after the interview, are you able to ask, or is it just I can watch?
Ms. Lucy?
Will you be asking questions of the council or of the recruitment firms? Because the questions are just for the recruitment firms or from the city council, they're prepared questions. So it's not intended for the public to do the interviewing. It's for the city council only to do the interviewing with the set questions that they have.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see anyone else, Lucy. I could check with you to see if there's any comments to be read.
Yes, I've received one comment. Unless Anna McCauley, you wanted to read it yourself, because I see you're on the meeting.
Yes, I can read it. That would be fine.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure that I would be back in town in time for this. Okay. This is Anna McCauley, Los Banos resident. From information known at this time, we will have one or more new members on the council once the election results are known. We know that Mayor Faria is not running for re-election and cannot choose to run because the window to file has closed for incumbents. While it is helpful to hear from the headhunter agencies regarding their process and methodology in selecting candidates for city manager, I don't think it's useful for the present council to determine who's selected to fill this position. The firing of Josh Pinero is just too raw for anyone on the current dais to mandate what the next council is forced to live with. He was forbidden by Lucy Maloney to visit employees under her or any other department in City Hall. Who doesn't allow the city CEO to visit with any and all employees under them? Answer: someone who is obviously not in a comfortable position or relationship with their employees. Thank goodness the police and fire departments didn't lead their departments this way. I recommend we hold off on the selection of the city manager to the new council. We all recognize the interim city manager has a limited number of hours to serve. That should not be a problem. I've seen on recent council agendas that Police Chief Breezy has filled in on those occasions. So it is not that we don't have options in the meantime. Keeping a rein on the length of meetings to the agenda at hand and not sidebar distractions ensures the hours are not wasted. We shouldn't be beholden to anyone with years-long city council or state government employees as the ideal candidate. Haven't we had our fill of it? We in the public have, and now it's time for the city council to take this to heart as well. We're looking for a brand new slate, and that should begin with the next council making the selection. People who do business, whose business acumen is to dig in and get things done, are the ones we need. Ethics and integrity making all the difference going forward. Let's make the next council responsible for the city manager selection. The last thing we need is an escape hatch to blame today's council for whatever the choice becomes. Let the new council take responsibility for this selection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCauley. Ms. Lucy, anyone else?
I don't see anybody else that wanted to speak. Did anybody want to raise their hand? Or can we move on? I don't see anybody else.
Okay, so we'll close the public forum and we'll move to the next item, item number 6. Conduct interviews for the selection of an executive search firm to assist the city council in the recruitment of a new city manager. And we'll go to City Clerk, Ms. Mallon.
So before you tonight, you have the staff report that lays out the process that's going to happen tonight. Hopefully you all have your questions that I sent out. If not, I can send them to you again. Each firm is delegated about 30 minutes. And
Okay.
once one is done, we'll bring the next one in. And I see that they're all at the meeting right now waiting to be interviewed. And the first up is Kopp and Associates, Frank Rojas. So you guys can get started with your interviewing process if you'd like.
Okay, Ms. Melanie, should we give him the first?
Yes, let me
fine.
pin him and then he can briefly introduce himself.
Good afternoon, I'm on the line.
Okay, we
So-
see you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and then the city council will go ahead and ask you their questions.
Well, first of all, good afternoon to members of the city council, your interim city manager, Greg Wellman, and thank you, Lucy, for setting this up. My name is Frank Rojas. I represent Kopp and Associates. I'm the recruitment manager. I've got experience doing recruitment since 1981. The last 9-10 years been strictly in the public sector. I've done a number of city manager recruitments, but really I've done recruitments across the board in the public sector at the executive level. I'm from Tulare, California, is where I grew up. Very familiar with Los Banos. I used to drive through on my way to Berkeley when I was a student. And I'd always take 99, get off on 152, stop for lunch at Marshall Sandwich Shop back in the day on my way to Berkeley. And then when Marshall's closed down, unfortunately, I couldn't find another place to get a quick bite to eat. So I've not been back in town for a few years, quite frankly, but still staying in touch, understand the recent changes. I have experience working with other cities that, quite frankly, have had like 3 city managers in 5 years. I've also, just to address Ms. McCauley's comments about doing recruitment at this stage during when an election is coming up, I can talk to you about a very similar process I had in another community. But just to give you a sense, the process that I would follow is essentially to speak with you all about what your ideal candidate is. If you're interested in doing a community forum, I can certainly do that either live or via video, which I've got a lot of experience doing both. If you are interested in any other stakeholder conversations, I have talked up to 35 to 40 stakeholders, whether it be superintendents of schools, business officials, residents, leaders within the community. And I usually take those comments and I put them together in a report, which I would provide to you before you actually had a chance to review or before you did your interviews, so that you kind of get a good sense of what your community is looking for. So that's something that I'm very familiar doing, I'm very comfortable doing. We know it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm willing to put in, and I'm accustomed to putting in the time that's needed to get you the right person. I usually start off with, again, those conversations to get an idea of what you're looking for in your next city manager, the ideal candidate profile. I mean, I have a sense of what some of the needs are within the community, but I really want to speak with you directly to get a sense of what you're looking for. I start my search. We do a lot of outreach in terms of email blasts. We advertise in all the public sector forums, and I'm big on LinkedIn. I've been named one of the top 1% viewed profiles on LinkedIn. Quite frankly, I started recruiting before there was an internet. So I learned how to recruit by picking up the phone and calling people. And typically I'm calling people who may not necessarily be looking for a job or even looking at want ads, but what they're doing is they're working. And if I talk to them about this opportunity, it may stir some interest in the community. And so that's kind of my kind of go-to is I've got a stream on my personal phone of all the city managers and directors that I've worked with, and we stay in touch. If they're not looking for work, they might be great referral sources. So again, sending an email is not the best bet as much as talking to people, talking about the opportunity. And then if they're not interested, maybe they can refer somebody or they'll give me a line on where I can go for that. I think the next thing would be to let you know I do interviews of all the candidates. It's about a 45-minute to 1 hour interview. Not only would I provide you with a report with all the candidate documents, but you'll actually see my interview notes, the questions and the answers within that interview. You'll see the questions that I asked about experience, background, expertise, but also behavioral questions and some of the situations they've run into before. I provide you with, again, their responses. You'll actually be able to read what they've said. I do keep it clear and concise and direct, so you're not having to read a lot of the extra information, but it does speak to what, kind of brings to life the candidate for you, if you will. I don't want you to just see words on a page. I actually want you to get a feel for who the candidates are. At the end of the process, I would come back with you and we'll talk about all the candidates I've interviewed. You'll select basically your group. I do try to get a broad brushstroke of people based on what you're looking for. The broad brushstroke could be people regionally, within the state, outside of the state. Again, just try to give you a broad brushstroke of who is out there. You may look at people and say, well, thanks for that, but these are the people we're looking for. You may say, well, now that I know that these people are interested, I'd kind of like to see them. And again, I want to give you an opportunity, an option to look at different candidates. I facilitate the entire process at that point. We'll put the interviews together, the dates that you give us, that you give me, and I am there. If we do a first round in person, I'll be there in person to do the first round. If we do a first round virtually like this, and then a final round in person, I'm there to do that as well. Whatever your preference is. But I want to make sure that you know I'm going to facilitate. We do the backgrounds, we do the reference checks. So it's basically a start to finish process. I know you have a lot of questions. We don't have a lot of time. So I want to stop there and maybe answer a lot of the questions things that I might have talked about might be within the questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rojas. And what we're going to do is we'll go down through each council member and we'll select their first question, and then we'll make our way through there. So the first one I have on the first list is going to be Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Rojas, tell me about your candidate sourcing strategy. What do you find has the highest success rate of job placement, and what platforms bring the most applications?
So as I mentioned in my comments, we do advertise. We want as many people to, they may be looking to see the advertisements. We do email blasts. Everyone who's ever applied for a city manager position or any director level position will get an email that we are looking for this position. We also, again, I use business media like LinkedIn. Again, I've got over 10,000 connections. I've been named one of the top few, 1% read profiles. So when I start to post on there, it creates a vibe on business media, and people will start to see it. I have a marketing person who will post not only the brochure, but within 2 or 3 weeks after the recruitment starts, she'll put a video together and post it on there. So it kind of brings the city to life, if you will, too. Not a professional video that we may do that would put on the brochure. This is more like kind of highlights of the city and what we're looking for. But it has sound, it has pictures, photos, the whole thing. So it is eye-catching. But really, as I mentioned, I like to talk to people. So I've got a stream of people that I spoke with in the past. quite frankly, there are people coming into assistant city manager jobs or city manager jobs that I may have not spoken to. We have products like Seamless AI, GovSpend, which I can go into these platforms, type in city manager with a community of 50,000, plus or minus, if you will, in these regions, and I'll get the names of all the city managers or assistant city managers, whatever title I put in there, of all those disciplines, along with their email addresses and their phone numbers. I'll start to contact people that way as well. Again, sending them the email brochure or emailing the brochure, but also making phone contact. Those are the key strategies. But again, I think word of mouth, talking to people, finding out. Again, one of the things that we can't do on ads, one of the things that I don't think does justice in just in an email is that conversation I would learn from you. What are the highlights? What are the priorities? And we can print that, but then what happened with the last city manager? People are going to ask that question. We don't want to leave those questions out there. What we want to do is talk about, whether it's Alex or Josh or even, Greg in the role. I want to be able to share that information so that we kind of don't let rumor take over somebody's desire to apply for the position, but we give them more factual information, give them the highlights of why they should apply for this position, and even the lowlights. I mean, if there's some challenges that they're going to be there, I like to share that with them. I'll let people know this is not going to be a retirement job, but this is going to be an opportunity to create a legacy. If you come here and do a great job, you can share that with your grandkids.
Thank you. How many recruits did you place in employment that did not work out for the employer and or did not fulfill the length of time in their contract?
Well, I have one that just happened this year. We placed a director of finance at another city, and she actually decided after 8 months, she decided her former employer contacted her and offered her position as a deputy city manager. So she went back to her old employer. We offer a guarantee, so they contact me, let me know that. I'm going to redo the recruitment basically without any cost as far as professional fees, just asking basically for monies to do the advertising again. But again, that's one that happened this year. I'd have to think back on any others that have happened over the last couple of years. Just nothing's coming to mind. That's just the recent one, council member.
Thank you. How do you measure your success to match a potential employee with an agency?
So as I mentioned, I've been doing recruitment since 1981. I feel like I have a very natural ability to do this kind of work. I didn't go to Berkeley to become a recruiter, kind of fell into the work. But as I started to do it, I was getting feedback from clients like, you're the first recruiter we've ever spoken with who actually listened to what we were looking for. The candidates that you brought are not only fit the technical skill sets, but you seem to have understood what this culture is like, and we're happy with the work you've done. I also have had candidates that have said the same thing. I've been looking for a position like this for a long time, and I've worked with other recruiters, but you really kind of gave me the facts. You were straightforward. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I feel like I've gotten a great job. That kind of feedback really led me to keep coming back and doing this type of work, and I've done it steadily since 1981. And I think that's why a lot of the candidates that I've worked with have stayed in touch with me. They contact me when they see I'm doing the recruitment. They refer people to me. They say, hey, Frank, I see you're doing the recruitment for the City of Oceanside city manager job. I know a couple of people that would be ideal for that position. So again, I think by building those relationships, it speaks not only to my ability to connect with people, but to connect with the organization I'm working for. I listen. I'm really trying to focus on what your needs are and not what my expectations are, what they should be, but really listening to your words, your stakeholders' words, and trying to really get a good assessment. And again, that can't be projected in a brochure or an email, but by talking to people, as many people as I possibly can, much like I'd like to talk to all of you individually, it does give me an opportunity to build that relationship with you and to get a good sense of who you are and what you're looking for, but also to convey those messages to our potential candidates. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Councilmember Jones. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Our next council member is going to be Councilmember Deborah Lewis. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rojas. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me here, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you. Okay, my first question is, how strong are your agents' internal let me make sure I wrote this down because it cut off part of my question. Okay, how strong are your agents' internal employees? For example, do they invest in employment development certificates? Are your recruiters experienced in the field? And basically, do they practice what they preach?
You mentioned agents. Are you referring to the staff?
The staff, yes.
Okay.
The word, the question was, that was put down was agents. So yeah, your
Well,
staff.
first of all, the reason I'm talking with you here is I will be leading this recruitment. I mean, I'm going to be the person that you work with. I do have staff members. I mentioned somebody in marketing who will support me in terms of doing posts on LinkedIn, advertising, that type of thing. I do have somebody who will work with me in terms of getting documentation out, sending out those mass emails. But as far as doing the recruitment, I want you to trust that I'm the person that you're going to be working with, and I'm the person who's going to be leading this effort. I've been recruiting since 1981. As I mentioned, I've been in the public sector exclusively for about 10 years. Prior to that, I did a lot of private sector work and an interspersed public and private sector work. So I worked with a number of special districts, some cities as well, but in a different facet. And I was, again, but the last several years have all been exclusive within public sector. But I will be the person who leads this function for you, leads this recruitment effort.
Thank you. And I apologize. My printer took out some of the words, and when I looked it up online, the word was agency, not agents. Okay.
It's technology, and at least once we got to hear you're on mute. So I
Absolutely. Okay, my next question is, how many candidates do you normally screen for the position of city manager?
So I can tell you for a recent city manager search for the city of Oceanside, I gave them I think I interviewed 22 people. What I do in my binder or my report is I actually give them a recommended list. I think I recommended like 8 candidates in that particular case. The other 14 were, the other candidates that I interviewed. All the information for those candidates, my interview notes are still there. Now, the organization I'm working for, you in this case, you have the option of saying, well, Frank, I appreciate that you like this person, but we actually like these other 2 candidates in the group you didn't recommend, and here's why. But we'll have that discussion. I just did a deputy city manager search for the city of Rialto. We had 95 candidates. So obviously I interviewed a lot more. Some of them might be initial cursory conversations. I might talk to somebody 2 or 3 times before I actually decide, based on all these conversations I've had, these are the 15 people I want to talk with. And again, that was special because they really had a clear sense. We want somebody with community development experience and economic development. We want somebody with a public works background. We want somebody who's done building and facilities work in the past. So I was focusing, not getting your typical city manager candidate that might be more administrative, HR, IT, those functions, but really kind of focusing on that. So it depends on, again, what your needs are. If you talk about, well, Frank, we're involved in water conservation or housing affordability, public safety, we've got a gang issue, we need fiscal stability. We need somebody who has a background in public works for the streets and road repair or downtown strategic planning, or those are things that, again, based on what you're telling me, that'll kind of determine based on who applies for the job, who I'll actually be talking to. So if I get 50 candidates, it could be I have to talk to 30 of them because they all fit what you're looking for, or it could be narrowed down like in this process, down to 15 or 20 because those are the people that really meet with your guidelines.
And I'd just like to follow up on something that you stated in your answer on this particular question. In the beginning, you said that you may recommend, certain candidates for the position, but the council may say, well, we like these candidates over here. So if the council chooses a candidate that's not within your recommendation, is your work guaranteed if that doesn't work out?
Yeah, if I didn't feel that, I want you to see everybody. I want to give you a broad brushstroke. When we meet again, when I provide you with all the documents, I'll tell you why I recommend somebody. And I've had people say, well, based on the comments they made here about their relationships with unions, they're really not going to fit into our structure here. So they would eliminate somebody like that, but they like a couple of other candidates that maybe gave some really strong answers or had a really relevant background in other areas. I'm always going to guarantee the work I do, regardless of who you, I mean, if I've interviewed them, if I present them to you, they're all guaranteed.
All right, and my last question is, can your agency back up their claims about their work quality? For example, if you give us a subpar talent, it hurts your business and it hurts ours as well.
Well, if, again, I don't think I've ever seen a process like that, but if I ever have a talent pool that I present and you didn't like anyone, then I would have to go back to the drawing board again and try to understand where I went awry. But it's never favorable to do a recruitment a second time, but it has happened. I had a situation recently with the water district in Marin County. In fact, we're doing final interviews again this coming Saturday. But what happened there wasn't a situation where they didn't like anybody. It's the candidates they were making offers to were turning the job down. So even though people came in and they went through the interview process, they made an offer to one candidate, and for different reasons, the person ended up withdrawing. During the negotiations for that candidate, their second choice basically had taken another job. The third choice was the person they decided after looking at the first two, they kind of lost interest in. So we went back to the drawing board about a month ago, and I fast-tracked the recruitment. And we actually, I think it's worked out for the best, because the candidate that I'd reached out to at the very beginning and wasn't interested is now interested. And the ad hoc committee has met him, and they're saying, I'm glad it worked out this way because this is the perfect fit. So we're going to do final interviews with 3 candidates on Saturday. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rojas. Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Our next council member is going to be Councilmember Refugio Llamas.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good afternoon, Mr. Rojas.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, sir. My first question is, what are the 3 most important qualities you look for in a candidate for city manager?
So on a personal level, again, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, because this person's going to work for you. And I really want to take what you tell me as the most important qualities. But some of the things that I always look for are integrity, honesty, and really strong political acumen. A person has to understand that as a city manager, they manage the city, but they're not the policymakers. And too many times I've interviewed people who come across like that 6th or 8th or 10th member of the city council, and that's kind of a sign for me that maybe they're not going to be a good fit. Unless you're looking for a 7th or 6th council member, it may not be the best fit. So those are 3 of the things that I look for. But again, this is going to be your candidate. I want to ask you that. I would want to ask you that same question.
Fantastic. Thank you. Second question, between experience and education, which do you consider more qualifying?
I guess it would depend on the level of experience of the candidate. I think that an MPA is very important, because it does show that the candidate has been priming themselves to become a city manager in a lot of cases. But really, experience is going to tell us, have they dealt with certain situations? Have they dealt with a dysfunctional staff, for example? Have they had to come in and where a city might be fiscally challenged on the brink of either being, losing their going bankrupt, or in a similar situation like that? Has a person been involved in homeless issues, for example? I mean, you're not going to learn that in college necessarily. And so if you had to deal with homeless issues, not like, I did a city manager search for a town in the San Joaquin Valley where their head count was 7. That wasn't as much of an issue there. But then I've dealt with cities that when I get off the freeway, the homeless encampments just are nonstop. How is the community? There are people who believe in who think about public health and public safety and all the different areas in between. What has the candidate done? I had a candidate for the city of Santa Ana who talked about how she addressed the homeless issues. It was spot on for what the city would have wanted to hear on that particular issue. So again, experience is so important. I would definitely, if your minimum qualifications require a master's degree or bachelor's degree, then certainly they're going to have to meet those minimum qualifications. But I would still want to share with, that's going to be the first and foremost qualification before I can even talk to a candidate. But I definitely want to talk about experience as well.
Thank you. And my last question for you is, some of it you already answered, but again, why did you choose this area of work?
And I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Why did you choose this area of work?
Well, as I mentioned, when I graduated from college, I really hadn't heard of this type of recruiting. I kind of fell into a job. I was thinking about going to law school. I started doing this work, and just by the response I was getting from my clients, from candidates, I realized that I had a natural ability. I could assess people well. I understood what a customer or a client was looking for, and it felt good, to find that kind of a match on a professional and a personal level. And I continue to do it, and my career just grew from there. And it's second nature to me. I mean, I can't even think of anything else I'd want to do. Even if I retired, I think in some facet I'd want to be able to do some type of a jobs program where I could help people prepare for getting into the workforce or getting back into the workforce if they've been a mother, they had a child or something. I'd want to help people in this some facet of this work, or help train new recruiters. My daughter has become a recruiter, just to let you know. I mean, she graduated with her master's degree. I saw her post today that she never thought she'd become a recruiter, but this is what her dad did, and all of a sudden she found herself following in these footsteps. So yeah, I think it's a great career. I love it. I have a passion for it. I love I can't do what you do, Councilmember Llamas, but what I can do is if I do my job right and I do it well, I can help support you be successful in your role. And that's a great feeling.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Rojas again. Thank you, Councilmember Llamas. All right, Mr. Rojas, now it's my turn. I'm Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Kenneth Lambert. My first question is, I've read your recruitment strategy and actually listened to you explain it earlier. I want you to give me one good reason why we should go with your consulting group. So
I want to revert back to Ms. McCauley's comments about doing a recruitment right now. So I did the city manager search for the city of Salinas a couple of years back when I was with another firm, and it was the same time of the year, and they talked about, should we do the recruitment now? I've worked with city councils that work very well together. I've worked with others that were, that there was a lot of dissension amongst them. This was a council that was very respectful. Their mayor had just passed away, so they were down from 6 to 7 as a council. But I could tell through their interactions. I watched their council meetings. There was a lot of respectful dialogue. They didn't always agree, but when they didn't, they were respectful about how they interacted with one another. So what I said, as a resident, and no disagreement to you, Ms. McCauley, but as a resident, I want my city council members to continue to do their job. I don't want them to put things on hold until, for 4 months or 5 months, whenever the new council comes in and we start in January kind of a thing. But what happened with that recruitment is interesting because I did the search. I came up with 7 candidates and I think there were a couple of council members that thought they were going to win their election and who didn't end up not winning their election. But we did 7 interviews, and they narrowed down the process to 4 top candidates. The elections happened, they waited for the results, and then really a new majority came in, if you will. And I don't think there was a huge change in kind of their vision for the city, but there were a few new council members that came in, including a new mayor. And we sat down, we met, we talked about the process and what had happened before with some of the older council members who had been there and some of the newer council members. They asked me questions about the process and how I went about it, what I thought could be different, or what, how we could move forward. And I gave them the option. I said, we had 7 candidates. I can bring you the binders and show you who all the candidates were that I interviewed, not just the top 7, but everybody in the process. We could redo the recruitment again. Or the other option is you could interview the 7, or you could interview the top 4 that are left to you right now. After this discussion, they agreed that they would interview the top 4. And if they didn't find somebody that they were comfortable with or happy with, then they would go back and re-look at the other options. But they did that. They hired their city manager, and he's been there ever since. And I know we've stayed in touch. He says, in fact, I've done several recruitments for him. I think about 4 or 5 recruitments for him since. But I think the city manager appreciated the process and the honesty and the dignity that took place in the process, not only with my interaction with them, but meeting with the 2 different councils, if you will. And, there were some same members, but I think the process was so well done. The dialogue and the conversations were so respectful that I think it worked out perfectly for them. Does that help in terms of?
Yeah. Sure.
I have experience in doing this as far as the timing goes, but I also have all the other experience that goes with the search, including community outreach.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, you've kind of answered this question a couple of times, but I'm going to throw it out there again. What do you feel is your top marketing strategy, and can you give an example?
Yeah, so the marketing, as I mentioned, again, we've got to get the word out to as many people as we possibly can. I mean, we want everyone in California to know that this city manager search is going on. If you're looking for a regional search or a national search, we want as many people to know about this position, because as much as I say I want to pick up the phone and call people, I can't call everyone that's in this role. So that's where we start using the technology, where I get my associates to work with me on this. Get on the technology, do a search of people who have worked with these demographics, people who have worked in these communities of this population, people who have worked with this size budget for, and make sure the title is, if you're open to a deputy city manager or an assistant city manager or only city managers, then those are the titles that we'll put there. But then we start sending out email blasts for all those folks, as well as the people that we have in our system already. So that's going to be able to do a little bit more personal touch. As far as the marketing goes, I do want to learn as much as I can about the culture of the organization. I want to learn as much as far as what you're looking for, your community, and again, that depends on how much of this you're open to me doing, whether it's calling stakeholders, doing community outreach, but that's part of the marketing. That'll help me determine where we're going to advertise. Again, I focus on strictly public sector sites, the public CEOs and jobs available and ICMA, places where we're going to find these candidates specifically at this level. I also go to sites that are specifically to women that are professional women that are in these roles, or minority sites as well, exclusively. So you do get a well-rounded queue. I'm not just looking for one person. Not that everyone isn't looking at all these sites, but I want to be intentional. We are looking for women. We are looking for minorities. We are, again, as a council, you're going to interview, you're going to select the people that you feel are going to be best for your community. But I still want to give you the broadest brushstroke as possible. So that we've got the advertising. Again, I mentioned social media or more appropriate business media like LinkedIn. We're going to use the technology that's available to us. We're going to use things like email blasts. But again, a lot of it's just going to be the personal touch. But that's the strategy. It really kind of works around what your needs are. And how we put that brochure together. What are the areas of expertise that you're looking for?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rojas. One last one. It's a quick one. And have you ever missed a projected timeline that's going to be given?
So if we kick off this recruitment, I do give you a schedule. The only thing that's going to change about it is if we set up interviews and you're not available for the interview dates. But I do put that on the schedule. My projected date for first round interviews is this week. My projected date for final interviews is this week. You have that. Now you can let me know in advance. We're going to be out on vacation. We're dark that week or what have you. But I stick to my timeline. It's about 12 weeks, sometimes 13. And I say sometimes 13 again, if a council member is not available, due to a vacation schedule, we might go from week 12 to week 13 kind of a thing. But yeah, I stick to the timeline.
All right. Mr. Rojas, I appreciate it. I believe I'm the last council member for the questions. We appreciate your time that you came here for us. And we look forward to getting back with you as soon as we can.
Thank you
I'm
for the
sure
time
Mr.
you've allotted me. All the best in your rest of your interviews. Take care.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rojas. Ms. Lucy?
Okay, the next up is Pro Recruiters. So let me unpin Mr. Rojas and let me pin, is it going to be Liz Brolick or Katie Prisler?
Hi, it's Liz Brolick.
Okay, let me pin you. Okay, welcome, Liz. And I'll give you an opportunity to also introduce yourself and tell the council a little bit about yourself and the firm before they start asking you the same questions.
Sure, absolutely. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here. My name is Liz Brolick. I'm the general manager at Pro Recruiters. We're actually headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So coming to you from the Midwest today. I have been in staffing and recruiting, doing agency recruiting exclusively for the last 22 years. I have done executive level searches for the last 12 years. In those searches, I have done searches for the city of Tulsa, Tulsa Regional Chamber, and executive searches for the chamber and the state of Oklahoma. So I am very experienced in working with groups like yours in filling these kinds of positions. Similar to Mr. Rojas, I am the main point of contact and will be the primary recruiter for all of your positions. I work on one position at a time. I don't do more than 10 a year because scheduling doesn't allow me to do more than that. Really excited to talk to you about this opportunity. I know that the city manager position is a crucial role for any city, and you all need to get this position filled with someone who will, help continue to work with you all as a council and the employees of the city and move forward to a better tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brolick. So we'll start off with our questions again, and we'll start off with our first one's going to be from Councilmember Jones.
Hello, Ms. Brolick. Tell me about your candidate sourcing strategy. What do you find has the highest success rate of job placement, and what platforms bring the most applications?
Okay. So I'm going to answer your last question first because that's the easiest one. The highest success rate, if you're looking for sheer volume of candidates, is going to be through Indeed and LinkedIn. Those two get the highest volume of views and applicants from a professional level search like this. Sourcing strategy is you can't just post and pray. You can't post the position and then just hope that the best applicant out there is going to apply. While you always get a large number of qualified applicants that do apply, you do have to go out there and actively headhunt. Contact other city managers in the area and the region that meet the qualifications that you all set forth, and determine if they are interested in the position and actively recruit candidates as well, to make sure that you are getting the best qualified candidates presented to you for the position. Not only those that are actively looking for something new, but those that maybe in the back of their minds are thinking that maybe it's time, maybe it's not, but haven't crossed that line to be actively looking at job postings. And then your third question was highest success rate. In terms of sourcing, it's definitely a combination of the outbound sourcing and headhunting phone calls and then posting on multiple platforms. I'm working an executive director position right now for an organization, a statewide organization in Oklahoma. We posted on multiple platforms. Indeed and LinkedIn are the two that I can count views and see how many views that we got. We've gotten over 3,500 views for the one post. and 149 applicants from that post. I also sourced an additional 60 candidates for the position. So for the executive director search, we've got 200 candidates to start with and narrow down from.
Thank you. How many recruits did you place in employment that did not work out for the employer and or did not fulfill the time length of their contract?
Excuse me. So most of the positions that I have placed have been open-ended contracts. So there's not necessarily a time limit to fulfill. It's, they work until they either get asked to leave or leave on their own. But, I tallied the positions. 98% of the placements that I place stick for 1, 2, 3, 4 years based on the expectations of the hiring manager, the hiring authorities. We put a lot of work in on the front end and guarantee our work. So when the positions don't work, because sometimes they don't, life happens and old employers call back, all kinds of things happen. But we do guarantee the work on the rare occasion when it doesn't work out.
All right, thank you. How do you measure success to match a potential employee with an agency?
Yeah, so I do that by working with you guys. I need you all as the hiring authority to tell me what the most important characteristics, qualities, education, experience are for each candidate. And I create what I call a scorecard. It's literally like a report card that you would get at school, where I take each one of those quantities, and as I'm going through the interview process, talking with the candidates, they get a grade from 0 to 5 scale, 0 meaning they don't have any of it, 5 meaning they're off the charts, exceptional in this skill or level of expertise. And so each candidate has a scorecard, and that's how I determine which candidates get presented to you and which don't. In the 22 years I've been doing it, every search that I do like this, there's always a natural kind of cliff. There's always a natural fall off. There'll be 5, 10 candidates that are all in the high 90s, and then you won't have anybody until like 82. There's always a really natural cutoff and progression of who the top candidates are. So at the end of my process, I look at my scorecard and I literally look at their grades. And then those are the candidates that I submit to you. I do that because that way we're comparing apples to apples. I'm asking all of the candidates, all of the same questions, and I can compare all of their responses across the board and know that they have been through a fair and equitable process. It wasn't because, oh gosh, the recruiter Liz really liked this one candidate better than the other. She, clicked with them better. It's not about whether I click with them or not. It's about whether you all do and whether they meet the qualifications that you all have set forth. Way to go find.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Thank you, Mr. Brolick. Our next council member is going to be Councilmember Deborah Lewis.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure if it's Mrs. or Miss Brodlick, so
Call me
excuse
Liz.
me.
That's fine.
Okay,
You're fine.
all right, Liz. Your first question is, how strong are your agency's internal employees? An example would be, do they practice what they preach? Do you invest in employment development and certifications? Are the recruiters experienced in their field?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that question. Similar to Mr. Rojas, I definitely would be the main point of contact. I'd be the one that all of the candidates are talking to you, and I would be working with you all directly. I do have 22 years experience. I am a certified staffing professional. I've been certified through the American Staffing Association since 2007. And that requires I do continual getting continuing education credits every year to keep that certification. Part of what ProRecruiter stands for, what we do is provide learning opportunities for our employees. And we do, in fact, require that our internal team do continuing education, whether they're certified or not, because we do want them to stay at the top of their game.
Thank you. All right, the next question is, how many candidates do you normally screen for the position of city manager?
So every position that you screen is a little bit different. It depends on the geography, how wide the search is. Is it a nationwide search? Is it a regional search? Is it, a very localized search? So the number depends greatly. But to give you an example of the position I'm working on right now, I've got 149 candidates for an executive director role. And of those, I personally have screened about 80 of them. And I'll present I'm not quite done with the screening, but it looks like I'll probably present 12 to the search committee for that, starting at 149 and working my way down.
Thank you. And my last question is, can your agency back up their claim about work quality? An example would be, if you give us a subpar talent, it hurts our business and it hurts us as well. It hurts your business and it hurts us as well.
Absolutely, for sure. I think, so the short answer is yes. I wouldn't still be doing this 22 years later if I wasn't able to back up what we do, but we are human. People are people, right? And so sometimes things don't always work out as well as we want them to. I think the best example and the best story I can give you is that for positions like this, people hire me again when the positions are vacant. I filled a position for the state of Oklahoma. 4 years later, that person got their dream job somewhere else. They left the position and the state called me again and said, hey, you did such a great job last time, please do it again. The position I'm working on now, I filled this job 6 years ago. Wait, no, 3 years ago. Sorry, bad math. And that person got a nationwide opportunity, and they've called me again to fill that position. And I think that if the quality of candidate I provided either of those times wasn't up to par, if the search committees weren't happy with the results, they wouldn't have hired me to do those positions.
I just want to back up to ask a question on the second question I asked you about normally how many positions you have recruited for city managers. The numbers that you gave us, was that for city managers or was that for just recruitment as a whole?
That one is just a specific example of one I'm doing right now. Yeah, it's for an executive director. It's not for a city manager.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Hey, Ms. Burlett. Our next council member is going to be Councilmember Refugio Llamas.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. My first question is, what are the three most important qualities you look for in a candidate for city manager?
So there are four things, if I can expand just a little bit. I need the right skill, I need the right aptitude, I need the right mindset, and I need the right expertise. You all have to tell me what skills you need specifically at this point in time for your city, because it changes from city to city, and what you're facing is different. So, right now you might need somebody who's going to be a really strong public speaker, somebody that's, really good at overcoming objections and, bringing people up. You might need somebody that's a strong team builder. You might need somebody that, is really great in public policy. You have to tell me what those details are, but I'm looking for skills, aptitudes, mindsets, and expertise.
Fantastic. Thank you. Second question is, between experience and education, which do you consider more qualifying?
I am a proponent of education, but I think that life experience and professional experience teaches you things that you will never learn in the classroom. So while the classroom is important, I think experience trumps the education.
Thank you. Last question is, why did you choose this area of work?
My gosh. It was a total accident. I started my career as a fundraiser for a nonprofit agency in rural Oklahoma. I had a 7-county territory and I loved it. I loved, I felt really good about what I did every day. But it was a long, long time ago, and nonprofits didn't pay very much back then, and I just couldn't afford to do the work anymore. Somebody told me about recruiting. It was not something I had ever heard of. When I was in college, human resources was a class, but it wasn't even an offering as a major. But I got into it 22 years ago and I fell in love. I still get to feel really good at the end of every day about what I do. I get to help make candidates, many times I get to help them make their dreams come true. Becoming a city manager oftentimes is like the pinnacle of somebody's career. And so getting to help them do that and take that either the next step in their career or moving from, one size city to another size city, those are life-changing opportunities. And I feel really good about being able to help people do that. But more importantly, when a city hires the right city manager and they get the right person, the difference that makes to your community and how important that role is to not just the people, on this Zoom call, but every single citizen of your city. This position is critical and you got to get it right and you got to get the right person. So the satisfaction I get from knowing that I helped make that happen and get that right person in there, and know that, the tiny little job I did as a recruiter helped make the city of Los Banos better. I mean, it doesn't get better than that for me.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Ms. Burrow, and thank you, Councilmember Llamas. Okay, so I'm the last councilman with the questions. My first question is, you have explained your recruitment strategy. I want you to give me just one good reason why we should go with your consulting group.
Yeah. So I think that what a lot of people might think is my biggest weakness is possibly in this situation my biggest strength. I come to the table completely unbiased. I don't have any of the history, so candidates that I present will be the best qualified candidates for the position. You don't have to worry that I'm going to exclude people or include people for the wrong reasons, because I don't know your community and I don't know the specifics of what's going on other than what you will share with me during the search. So any and all candidates and feedback I get and give to you will be completely unbiased to help you all move forward.
All right, thank you. The second question is, what do you feel is your top marketing strategy? And can you give an example?
So marketing has changed so much from when I started doing this job because the internet was barely a thing. Definitely being active on LinkedIn is huge. I too have over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. I post every single day. I get 10 to 20,000 people looking at my posts on an average week. Being visible in the professional space is important. And having those, understanding what that looks like, understanding how LinkedIn works, understanding that you have to post, every day, multiple times a day. Those 3,500 views I mentioned earlier came from multiple LinkedIn posts, Indeed postings, and And that is the kind of publicity you need to get the right people in. And you've hit that right mark when people start coming to you saying, my friend Bob saw your LinkedIn post and said I needed to apply. Like, that's how you know that you're getting the right number of candidates. And I keep bringing up this current search because like I'm literally writing them, almost done with it. So the numbers are fresh. But, of the 140 or so candidates that I've gotten, about 20 of them have come to me as a direct result of, someone I know saw this post and said I needed to apply. So I think that's the biggest marketing we can do.
All right, thank you. And my last question is an easy question. Have you ever missed a projected timeline?
I have never missed a projected timeline that wasn't a direct result of a delay from the hiring authority. So if there's if I set out a timetable and a schedule, and if I say we need to, meet by this day, and that meeting gets pushed out a month because of scheduling, then I'm going to miss my deadline by a month because I can't, right? Like, I can only control what I do. If we have a hard time scheduling a meeting or getting together, or, again, vacations or those kinds of things, the only time I miss a deadline is when it's not in my control to do your calendaring, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. That was my last question. We appreciate you coming in this position.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. You too.
Ms. Loney?
All right, the next person up is Sectaris Partners, and it's either going to be Sherry Roosh or Adam Cox. And I see that you're both here. Is one of you going to present?
I'll go ahead and present.
Okay.
And if you want to give us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, thank you, Council. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know it's already been a long meeting for you, so I'll try to keep my responses brief. I'm Adam Cox, one of the partners at Sectaris Partners, along with Sherry Roosh here. I actually am your county brethren. I was born and raised and live in Merced. Sherry is up in Calaveras County. And we started this firm just about a year ago. So we're a new firm, and we offer a couple of different things, including executive searches, strategic planning, and project management, all with a focus on public agencies. That is our real bread and butter. We love good governance, and recruiting is a huge part, obviously, of good governance. So with that, we're happy to jump into your questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Roosh, would you like to say a word before we get started with the questions?
I would love to. Thank you so much for your time. And as Adam stated, we have a little bit of a different viewpoint. I have been a board member for 17 years for a school board. So we have a different lens. We're not a recruiting, just specifically recruiting, but we understand your point of view. And that's very important, we feel, as far as finding the perfect candidate for you.
All
So
right.
thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And we'll be going to Council Member Mr. Jones.
Hello, Adam. Hello, Sherry. Tell me about your candidate sourcing strategy. What do you find has the highest success rate of job placement, and what platforms bring the most applications?
Thank you. So, we would make sure to tailor our marketing and our sourcing really to what kind of person you guys are looking for. For instance, in the Central California area, sites like Government Jobs and the Western Cities Magazine job board are very popular for public agency jobs and public agency executives. We would definitely make sure to get in League of California Cities, MM, and ANC, and all of the other professional groups in the area, making sure that we can definitely draw from the local talent pool, Central California talent pool. But we're happy to expand those sources depending on whether you guys would like a full statewide or even a national search. We're definitely very open to using the best avenues that we think will get the most candidates.
Thank you. How many recruits did you place in employment that did not work out for the employer and or did not fulfill the time length of their contract?
Thank you. So as I mentioned, Sherry and I, that we are a new firm. We're very excited to do this work. We really founded it because we believe we're both local government nerds. We love government and we love good governance. And so with that said, we have done one successful placement so far of a high-level public agency executive. It worked out very nicely, and they are still with that client that we placed them with.
Thank you. How do you measure your success to match a potential employee with an agency?
Yeah, so Sherry and I, as Sherry mentioned, she is currently, she's been an elected school board member for nearly 20 years, and I served as a school board member for over 11. And she had mentioned this lens that we like to look through, and that really is the elected officials lens, the governance lens. And so we, looking at it from your point of view, are gonna measure candidates on things like their communication ability, their foresight, their planning, and being able to tell the political nuances of a situation. And we really believe very heavily in making sure that it's a right fit personality-wise. We would, as part of our process, not only be speaking with you, the elected body, but depending on what kind of process you guys would like, we are happy, and we have done before community forums. We've used also electronic tools to help us put together or gather data and feedback on what the community would like to see in a leader, if that's a route that you guys would like to go. But really taking all of this information, putting a candidate profile together, and using that to see whether or not candidates really fit in your particular community with Los Banos's particular needs and challenges. So it really is, I guess, a little bit subjective. Not everyone is necessarily getting an objective report card from us or being graded. But really the success is going to come through making sure that we have placed the good candidate with the right ability to lead for your specific challenges as the Los Banos community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Our next council member is going to be Council Member Deborah Lewis.
Good afternoon to both of you, and thank you for coming. My first question is, how strong are your agency's internal employees? For example, do you practice what you preach? Do you invest in employment development and certification? Are your recruiters experienced in their field?
I really like your question, and I like in particular the practice what you preach part. And again, that goes back to why Sherry and I actually founded this firm and why we want to do recruiting for public agencies. Again, is because we know what it's like to be on an elected governing body. And, you really are dependent on the relationship that you have with your chief executive, in this case, the city manager. And so, we would want to make sure that this is a person that we could see your particular council, again, with the unique needs and challenges that the Los Banos community faces, making sure that we think that our final candidates that we present to you would uniquely fit you. Not that they just want to move up, not that they want to be a city manager, not that they have, a great resume and great history, but that they actually make sense for you as a person. We're all people. And that's really kind of the tack that we take. We find ourselves in a unique bit of a situation here, as we're not what we might consider a traditional headhunting firm. And so we really do take pride in making sure that that the person selected or that the people given to you for consideration is someone that an elected official can work with and trust. and accomplish work with.
Okay, and that was one of the three examples. There were two more. Maybe you can expound on it a little bit. Do you invest in employment development and certification? And the other one was, are your recruiters experienced in their field?
So my apologies for not fully answering. Yes, we do invest in our own continuing education. So Sherry and I are the principals, and we would be leading the search. Nothing would be delegated. And so, yes, we do invest in our education in the overall general governance field and in the HR management and recruiting field. Like I mentioned, we have a short history, relatively new firm, and so a little bit hard to answer the last piece.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The next question is, how many candidates do you normally screen for the position of city manager?
So we think that for this particular position, something that we might consider successful is in the neighborhood of perhaps 20 to 25 applicants. That's what we on our recent executive search, there is a lot of movement in the job market right now. There's a lot of mobility. And what we're finding is that, or what we have experienced rather, is that there's professionals who are really looking for a particular quality of life, things to improve their quality of life. It's not just about the right fit. And so, making sure that we're communicating the benefits of living in and serving Las Banos would be very important to us.
Excuse me. Thank you. Excuse me. Okay, my last question is, can your agency back up their claims about work quality? For an example, if you give us a subpar talent, it hurts your business and it hurts us as well.
Yeah. Again, just going back to why the entire reason that we actually intentionally went into this business is that we wanted to make sure that we are providing a good product. We want to see public agencies function. Merced County deserves more. Las Banos, the West Side, it deserves more. It deserves great leadership. And so it is very important to us. We, of course, would work with the city on any contractual language for a replacement if something were not to work out. We would definitely guarantee our work. But the care that we want to put into the initial search is such that we really feel like we have a personal stake in this. It really is about our community, which is your community.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Our next council member is going to be Councilmember Llamas.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for coming in. First question to you is, what are the three most important qualities you look for in a candidate for city manager?
So I think I would probably choose, there's a lot of good things, but I think the core things that we look for are the ability to effectively communicate, their professional competence, and their ability for foresight and planning. And, a lot of the other stuff can fall in line, right? But those are critical. Communication in particular, two-way, clear communication in particular, are critical for public agencies to function. That if you don't have that link, that effective communication link between your chief executive and your city council, not much can get done. And then why are we all here if we're not getting anything done?
Thank you. Second question is, between experience and education, which do you consider more qualifying?
I think without a doubt, experience. Education obviously is wonderful. It shows follow through, among other things. But conversely, I have, to be quite frank and honest with you, we work with people who are highly educated, who were not meant to be great public agency leaders, right? And so what really counts, I think, without a doubt, is the experience and some of that innate ability to navigate public agency, you know, just the internal politics, internal goings on that make public agencies like the city run. And so I think by far that experience and the ability, or, you know, really what matters is that they can demonstrate that they've been effective and that they've been able to accomplish things and have that experience, but be able to demonstrate the effective experience. Education is great and wonderful. We can definitely have a conversation if you were to select us, definitely have a conversation about what you'd like your minimum qualifications to be for education. But I think, you know, you can't beat wonderful experience with demonstrated success.
Thank you. My last question is, why did you choose this line of work?
Well, again, we really honestly, we love good government. We love Central California. Like I said, we both live here. I live very close to Los Banos. We've both spent many years on both elected and appointed governing agency bodies. And we both feel very strongly taxpayers and ratepayers and residents and visitors should all have a great experience. They should get what they're paying for. The city should function. Every public agency should function. That's why they exist, right? We don't just create public agencies just to do nothing. And so we really feel strongly about identifying and placing people who can get things done in an effective and respectful way, and work with, you know, it's not about just working with the five of you on the current council, right? It's about the ability to continue maintaining the city's high level of excellence and high function, regardless of who sits at the dais, and the ability to work with whomever is at the dais. And so we really, honestly, we care about public agencies. It's our entire business model is improving and stabilizing public agencies.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you, Mr. Llamas, and thank you, Mr. Cox. And I'm the last councilman here for the questions. My questions are short, but we'll get right to them. We've heard your recruitment strategy, and I would like for you to give me one good reason why we should go with your consulting group.
Okay. We care and we have a personal stake. I mean, this is the area that we live in. We, of course, as I just mentioned, the people on the west side, the people of Los Banos, should have every faith and confidence in their government. And good, clear leadership and communication goes a long way towards achieving that. And so, really in short, we really care, and I would really love to see a highly effective and highly functioning city of Los Banos.
And my next question is, what do you feel is your top marketing strategy? And could you give an example?
So, we're obviously going to take the normal, we're going to do the normal things like we mentioned in the first question, right? We'll do the job postings and we can, put out the LinkedIn posts and all of that. But what we really would like to focus on is not just posting an opportunity out there, but on all of the different avenues that we're going to publish on. Maybe even doing a really nice community profile and or a community video, something that really sells the city of Los Banos, so that like I mentioned before, we've seen there's a lot of movement in the job market right now, particularly, really a lot of retirements out of high level public agency jobs over the last couple of years. The pandemic really spurred that on. And so what that means practically for you guys is that there's going to be probably a little bit more competition to identify and secure a good candidate than maybe there had been in the past. And so what that means is that it's our job to help you guys sell the city to the best candidate that we can identify. And that's really our number one marketing strategy, is to make sure that the candidate knows what they're getting into. Because again, we don't want someone showing up in Los Banos and leaving a few months or a year or even 2 years later. You want someone who's going to invest a little bit of time. So that's, our strategy again, good governance.
All right, thank you. And my last question is, you're going to be given a projected timeline. Have you missed a timeline?
Yes, but I would politely punt that over to the client because we do like to be flexible. And so I guess to answer your question, we have not missed a deadline on our end. We have been flexible with our clients in what they need. And sometimes that has meant moving timelines that were initially agreed upon, which is completely fine. For instance, the last search that we did, the governing body wanted to have another round of final interviews, and they narrowed it down from, I think it had gone from 5 to 3 to 2 to 1. And so they added an additional round of interviews to get from that 3 to 2. And that was completely fine. They needed it. They knew exactly it was going to be a targeted interview. They knew exactly what these things that they wanted to learn about these last 2 remaining finalists. And so we're very much happy to be flexible in what the city needs. But as far as we go, we are going to make you an offer and agree on a timeline that we can stick to and that we can deliver you a fair product on the agreed upon timeline.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. That was my last question. We appreciate you two coming to our interviews.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
You betcha.
Thank you.
And go back to Ms. Maloney.
All right, so let me remove them, unpin them. Okay, so you've listened to all 3 firms, and the next process would be for you to rate them from 1 to 3, 1 being your favorite, or rating them 1, 2, 3 on how you liked them, and the one that had the lowest score would be your favorite.
Okay, so
Mr. Jones has a question. Mr. Jones has his hand raised.
Oh, Mr. Jones?
Yes, I actually just now hearing their interviews, I need more time to decide, and I'm not ready to vote on it this evening.
So before we go there, I wanted to make a suggestion actually. For Mr. Unfortunately, Mayor Tom Faria had to have an emergency today, and I'm sure he would like to have been part of this. I wanted to get with the City Attorney Vaughn, and I wanted to see if it's possible if we could schedule maybe a closed session August 25th. I believe it's next week. It's after the council. That way, Mr. Freer would be able to be in for this vote. Mr. Vaughn?
So it's clearly the pleasure of the council as to whether they wish to move forward or not. The recommendation in the staff report and the description in the agenda is to move forward and select somebody. It's not something that can be done in closed session. I don't know if you misspoke in terms of another meeting. You can always call a special meeting on 24 or 48 hours notice to put this back on the agenda, since I believe your next meeting isn't until the end of September, your next regular meeting. If this was on video, it would give Mr. Faria the ability to watch the video. But the recommendation of the staff is that you move forward and select tonight. However, Mr. Jones is offering to continue the matter, and that's up for debate amongst the 4 of you. Unfortunately, we have an even numbered council tonight, and so a tie vote would be no action, either on the continuance or on the selection of the candidate. So again, it's what the council wishes to do at this point in terms of moving forward, and that does require a vote of the council in terms of what you're going to do tonight.
Okay, I also see Mr. Llamas's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Merton. Mr. Vaughn, just so I understand, right now the agenda states that we're going to select tonight. Is it my misunderstanding that unless we vote to not do it, then we continue with the agenda item? Is that correct?
Well, you're going to have potentially have competing motions. The motion from the floor would be a motion to continue. And if that motion loses, then the chair can entertain another motion, which would be a motion to go forward. And again, if we're going to get deadlocked in a 2-2 tie, and I'm not anticipating that will or won't happen, it's considered no action.
Okay, but I guess, again, the agenda is to move forward with this selection tonight.
But I think the agenda item you can consider a continuance of this matter. Again, it would take a vote to do that since it's on the agenda.
Right.
You need to take some action tonight.
Right. So then if we continue with this agenda item and someone says that a council member wants to have a motion to defer to another time, and that goes to a tie, then it reverts back to the agenda, continue with the agenda item. Is that correct?
You know, that would be considered no action. A tie vote would be no action.
So
It would be basically a failed motion with no action.
no action with no action. Then does that default to the agenda item?
You know, I feel that it's possibly that's going to come down to a deadlock. That's what, and I would like for Mayor Tom Faria to be part of this, and I'm sure he can watch the YouTube video if we need to call a special meeting next week, or whenever we can get us back here. Whenever what time is available. We have Miss Lewis's hand up also. I just want, this way there's no excuses for a tie vote to happen tonight. And Miss Lewis.
Thank you. Well, two of the council members have already indicated that this is going to be a deadlock vote. So, and again, you know, I'm going to state my position. I think this is a stall tactic because we all came here tonight with the understanding that we were supposed to select one of these agencies and move forward. So I need to go grab my calendar. I don't want to have this stalled off any longer into September. And I'm hoping that we can select a date and have our city manager contact Mr. Faria and make sure that he has a date clear so that we can move forward on this. Because we'll sit here forever trying to get this accomplished. And we started in July and here it is almost September and nothing has happened. Other than Mrs. Melanie doing the process of recruiting these agencies to bring forth to the council. So I won't have any problem with moving this forward to make sure that the mayor's on board, but I'm not in favor of moving it out for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm just not.
Okay, I still see 2 more hands before we go forward. Mr. Llamas.
Thank you. I think Mr. Jones was first.
Oh, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I mean, we should not be taking this recruitment lightly. I mean, we're essentially asking the next recruitment firm to find us a unicorn. And just think about it. The next city manager is going to have to love to be micromanaged by council. The next city manager is going to have to love to be bullied by council. And the next city manager is going to have to love to receive false accusations from staff. And the decision to find to choose a recruitment firm that will be finding the next city manager that loves to do all that is going to be tough for them to produce a good candidate that is okay with that. So I need more time to decide, and I don't think that's asking too much. And it would be nice if we could have 5 votes on it. That's all. And just remember, Councilmember Llamas, Councilmember Lewis, you guys are the cause why we're here in the first place.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Llamas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to make a motion to proceed as indicated by the calendar. I'd like to have a vote on that so that we are clear as to the direction of the council.
We can take the motion and we can have a second.
I have my
proceed.
hand up.
Okay, oh, sorry about that.
That motion.
Lewis, go ahead,
I'll
Mr.
second
Lewis.
the motion.
Okay. And we can take a vote. For the motion is to proceed with the course of action for the resolution tonight, correct? For accepting? All in favor?
You probably should call a roll
All right,
vote.
yeah, call vote. Ms. Maloney, can you call a vote?
Jones,
No.
Lambert,
No.
Lewis,
Yes.
Llamas.
Yes,
So it's going to come down to 2-2 tied vote.
Motion dies.
So that's a lost
So-
motion, and the chair can entertain another motion that's not the same motion.
The chair will entertain a motion to proceed to push this to the next available time. Is that correct, Mr. Vaughn?
You can entertain whatever motion any of the 4 of you want to make.
Mayor Pro
Sound like
Tem,
you-
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make the motion to bring this back at another meeting to make this motion or make this, I'm sorry, to make the vote on the recruitment firm when all 5 of us are available. And Greg Wellman can help schedule that meeting.
Okay, is there going to be a second? I'll second that motion. And then we'll ask Ms. Maloney to take another vote.
Jones,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Llamas.
yes.
Okay, so as moved, as we will get in touch with the city manager, get the time set for Mr. Faria, the quickest we can get him available for the next special meeting, Ms. Maloney?
I believe the direction was for City Manager Wellman to do that.
Mr. Wellman? You have the direction?
Unless you'd like me to, I could do that, but the motion was for the city manager to do that. But I could help him.
Yes. Let's leave it as the city manager to participate in that, please.
Mr. Wellman?
May I? Mr.
Yes.
Tim, was the intent for a special meeting or is it open enough to allow for the mayor to select when he's available, and then we can coordinate with all of the council to see what is a date that might be most convenient?
I believe we're going to probably have to make sure we get Mr. Faria the date and get with everybody a date. Then we got to have a 48-hour notice, correct, Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
As long as we can get Mayor Faria on board, that way we get the 48-hour notice out for the special meeting. And I guess you could work with Ms. Maloney.
Yeah, I think that might work. The intent here, just so I get it clear, is that we would have that meeting to vote on a selection firm
Correct.
to be engaged.
Correct.
Okay?
That way we have all 4 council and mayor present at the time.
I think I get that, whether it's me or Lucy or both, we'll get it done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we passed that. We'll go to our next item, and that will be, now, will this be adjournment for here and then to the next meeting? Or how will we adjourn this one, Mr. Vaughn?
You're just going to adjourn the meeting and allow Mr. Wellman and Miss Melanie to coordinate another special meeting.
Okay, so we'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting, and Mr. City Manager, Mr. Wellman and Ms. Maloney will make the next meeting available to us when they have the times. And I'll entertain.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Brett. I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Llamas.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion, the meeting is adjourned at 4:51.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll vote aye, but when we have video, it should always be a roll call.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so we'll make a motion and get a roll call. We had the motion from Councilmember Jones, and I had second from, who was our second? Llamas? And roll
Yes,
call,
it
Ms.
was-
Maloney?
Motion by Jones, seconded by Llamas to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, and the roll call? I see
Jones?
Jones already dropped off.
Lambert,
Yes,
Lewis,
Yes.
Llamas,
Yes.
Maria.
and the meeting is adjourned at 4:52. Thank you.